Welcome to the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. I'm Margie Bissinger, a physical therapist and integrative health coach, and I am your host and guide on our journey to discover the keys to stronger bones, more happiness, and the secrets to live your best life ever. From nutrition to stress, from exercise to happiness, you will gain revolutionary insights from our leading experts. It is time for you to discover the health and happiness you deserve. Hey, Margie here. And it's 2020. It's the new decade. And so I'm going to dedicate this podcast to happiness. Happiness in your bones and happiness in your life, because it is so powerful and something that we all don't think about or realize how it can be so life-changing. And let's just talk about the bones for a minute. They've shown that increased happiness is related to improved bone density. There's a correlation when people are satisfied with their life. Their bones are better. And stress, which is inversely related to happiness, actually reduces the bone-building cells and stops the breakdown of the cells that break down bone. So it can negatively affect our bones as well. So these factors are critical. And they've been part of every program that I'm involved with osteoporosis and with really any health issue. But before I go so that's going to be our focus today. But before I go any further, I want to go through my happiness story and let you know why I'm so passionate about this topic and what I've seen in my career, in my life. So I started out as a relatively happy kid, one of those people where the glass was always half full, even when my circumstances weren't. And that was especially true when I was in my early 20s and I got married. Now, this should have been the happiest time of my life, but it really wasn't, because day 2 of my honeymoon in St. Martin, I found out that the person that I had married had been seeing another woman for the majority of our engagement. Now, you may ask, how could that possibly be? And in today's day and age, I don't think this could really have happened. But back then, we didn't have cell phones, so we didn't know where people were. And we were living in different cities. I was living and working in Boston, where he had been, and then he was doing an internship in Minnesota. So we were totally in different parts of the country. And I had no idea. And the plan was, after the wedding, I was moving to Minnesota, leaving my job in Boston and going to a place I didn't know a soul. So I find this out, but I still decided I was going to try to make things work out. Moved to Minnesota, to a place that nobody knew. He hadn't told anyone he was getting married, nor had he even broken up with the woman he was seeing. So as you can imagine, I'm not going to go into all the details. It wasn't the greatest situation. And things did not work out. We tried to go to counseling, but it didn't. So at that point in time, I had a choice. Where was I going to go? Should I go back to Boston, my old job, which I loved? Should I go back to New York, where my friends and family, I had such support systems? But I chose to move to Chicago because I didn't want people feeling sorry for me. And in Chicago, I took a great job working at an outpatient clinic as a physical therapist. And I'm working with people in chronic pain. So neck pain, back pain, TMJ, and all sorts of problems. And my patients were truly miserable. And they would say to me, Margie, you are so happy. What's your secret? And I thought to myself, if they only knew what I had just gone through, they would never be saying this. But the truth was, I was happy. And at that moment, I realized that happiness was not based upon your external circumstances. It was based on what's inside. It was an internal job. And I really thought about it because I had time there to think. And I was happy, even though I'd gone through a horrible experience. And what was it that let me be happy? And it's what I call now happiness habits that helped me get through this. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to start teaching these to my patients who were so miserable and see what happened. And miracles started to happen. People, first of all, got better so much quicker. Back pain, neck pain, their jaw pain, headaches. really got better at a much quicker pace than it had when I was just doing traditional physical therapy and not including teaching these different habits. And then the best part was I saw joy and purpose and returning to people. They would look at me and they had life to them. It was so amazing, the transformation. And that since that time, I've been teaching this to my patients and everybody I work with in every program. And that's over 35 years ago. And besides just what I had learned, I also studied positive psychology. And then I was so lucky to be mentored by an amazing woman, Marcie Bissinger, and become certified to teach her program, which is called the Happy for No Reason. And so all the combination together has really given me tools to teach happiness and see the transformations when people incorporate these concepts into their life. And so today what I wanted to do is just share some of these with you because it's a new decade and they are so powerful. And most people don't even realize that this can be improved. And where there's something called your happiness set point. And what that is, that's your base level of happiness. And it's sort of like a thermostat that hovers over a certain area. And it can go up, it can go down, but usually stays around the same. And that's with our happiness level. But the best news is that research has shown that we can increase this level. And we can increase our happiness set point by incorporating the habits that happy people have. It's really quite simple, but it's so exciting. And so before we even go into some of the things we can do, what determines our happiness set point? So when again, this has been researched. So 50% is your genetics. But they've even found now with a field called epigenetics that we have control over our genetics. So we can even have some impact on this. But let's say 50% are your genetics. Okay, ready for this? And think in your head while I say this. What percent do you think are your circumstances? Just think about it. Pick a number. The answer is 10%. And I know that might be shocking to a lot of you because most people think that's everything. You know, most people think I'll be happy when I make more money, when I have a new job, when I'm in a better relationship, when my children leave the house, when I lose 20 pounds. You know, I will be happy when. But guess what? That is not true because it's only 10% of your entire happiness set point. But yet that's what everybody or a tremendous amount of people believe. 40% are your habits. And guess what? You have control over that. So that's where we can have a tremendous impact. And that's so very, very exciting. And the sad thing is that they've done studies. And in a recent Harris poll, only 33% of Americans reported they were happy. How sad that 67% of the people living in America are not happy. And they found that in America, 55% of Americans feel they're stressed on a daily basis. And that's in the 2019 Gallup poll. So this is recent. So I just don't think, I think there's a lot of room to improve in this new decade. And that's what I want to help everyone with. So what I'm going to do today is go through 7 areas that it's when I teach a happiness class, and those are the 7 areas that we focus on. It's sort of like a home. And these are the areas that I feel that we can, when we get all 7, when we work on them, happiness soars. So we'll start with the foundation. So again, think of your house, the foundation. And what is the foundation? The foundation is, are you a victor in life or are you a victim? And so many people walk around, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, in victimhood. And when you do that, guess what? That zaps your happiness. And it's such an easy thing to just make that switch. You know, instead of letting life run you be in control and just stop and say, you know, instead of poor me, what can I do? And there's lots and lots of strategies, but I think step 1 is just getting out of that victimhood and trying to find solutions versus focusing on the problems. So that's stage one, the foundation. Then the first pillar is the pillar of the mind. And I want you to think how many thoughts the average person has, okay, every day. Well, it's 65,000. And out of those thoughts, how many do you think are the same thought you had yesterday and the day before? Ready? 95% are the same thoughts that keep repeating. And then out of your thoughts, what percent do you think are negative? Dun, 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 dun. You're not going to believe this. 80% are negative. So think about that. We are swarming with clouds of negativity over us. 80% of our thoughts are negative. That does not make for a happy person. But the best news is we can change this. We have the power. And it works. I see this on a daily basis. And so there's many, many, many techniques. But I think the first thing to do, and where I would start, is to just think about, instead of what's going wrong, because so often we wake up and all we do is think, what is wrong? We think of this problem, this isn't working, that working. Oh my goodness, I have to do this today, I have to do that today. And it just piles up and piles up. And just maybe start the day with what is going right. And we can start to change. And again, the negative thoughts, it's not a matter of just forgetting about them and just saying, oh, don't, pushing them out and life is wonderful and we're like Pollyanna. That's not it. That's not it at all. But there's many techniques that we can use to reduce negative thoughts. But to start with, just start increasing the positives and seeing what's going right. And when something good happens, soak it in, just absorb it, and just try to see all the good that exists in your life and the world. And it's amazing, just even starting there. The third pillar is the pillar of the heart. And are we living with an open heart, or are we living with a closed heart? And by an open heart, I mean, are we living with gratitude, forgiveness, kindness, all those different, appreciation, all of those different feelings? Because that's what really can change our life. And it's amazing. They've done research. The good thing is they've done research on all of this. And they found that people who had heart attacks, that when they practiced gratitude, they had less recurring heart attacks, less fatigue, depression, and inflammation. It's huge. So there's been so many studies on all of these things. And it's just that a lot of us don't incorporate it into our life, or we start doing it. Yes, I'm going to, every morning wake up and write my gratitude list, or before you go to bed, which is a great practice. But then life goes on and we just sort of forget about it. And then we'll move on. So the heart, the next comes the pillar of the body. How are we taking care of our bodies? Because our cells have to be happy for us to be happy. If we're filling our bodies with poor nutrition and junk food and sugar, that is not going to make us happy. Let's just go to sugar for a minute, because that was my nemesis. I am a recovered sugar addict. I have to admit it. And so what happened with sugar is that you have sugar, you're craving it, you want it, it's going to make you feel good and happy, right? No, you get the sugar and maybe your craving's gone and you feel good for a short period of time, get that high, but then guess what? You crash and then you want more, and sugar is more addictive than cocaine. So it gets you on this blood sugar roller coaster, and that does not help your happiness. Where I remember for me at 3:00, oh my goodness, I just wanted to go to sleep. I was so tired that I had to have the caffeine and I had to have my coffee because I was so exhausted because of the sugar. And what I used to do, my husband likes to bake. And so we always used to have these chocolate chips around the house. So I sort of would sneak the chocolate chips, but no one had to know because I would just buy another thing of chocolate chips and replenish them. I should have really saved it for something better than chocolate chips. But it was awful. You were on a roller coaster. And that I've been off sugar for probably around 15 years now. And it's amazing. It's just, I'm so much happier. It's incredible. And I just never want to go back. But there are strategies. There are strategies to getting off sugar. And, your life just becomes a lot better. But there are other things with your body. So you want to make sure you give yourself nourishing food. And you have to think, if is something, and I guess one technique that works well is before you put something in your mouth, you think, is this nourishing? Is this just sort of something for enjoyment? Or is this addiction? And when you label it, for some reason, that really helps. This is a technique I learned from Michael Burnoff. And it really does work with people that you just can label. I mean, there's so many other techniques, but to start an easy one, just think of what you're putting in your mouth. And is it something that's nourishing for your body? Because we really want a diet with nutrient-dense food. Everything we put in our mouth either helps us or people think, oh, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal because everything gets absorbed by your cells in your body and you have to deal with it. And it can dramatically affect your health. And I'm a big believer that let food, what Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, because it is. So many things can get better when you change your diet. But for 2020, you start simple and you start with just, easily. I also think the worst place to be in is overwhelmed. So if we all of a sudden put ourselves in a very restrictive diet, that's not going to make us happy. I mean, there are many things, everyone's different. How it works for one person could be the absolute worst diet for another person. But what I've found does work is that when we do things slowly and gradually, they become sustainable. And so maybe each week do one thing, add one healthy vegetable and take away one junk food or whatever it is. There's many, many techniques. But to just realize that what you put in your body is going to affect every cell and your happiness. And not only that, exercise. Exercise. Your cells and your body needs to exercise. And I know we've had a lot of podcasts on exercise because I'm a physical therapist. I'm such a believer in exercise, and I know how critical it is for your bones and really for every aspect of your health. But it's something the new year, make exercise a priority. Make it something non-negotiable. At least 3 times a week, find the time. And we talked about strength training, at least twice a week to do strength training. And that's so critical for your bones. But start somewhere. Just take baby steps and start somewhere with exercise and good nutrition. It's very important to make your cells happy. Okay, now we're going to the 4th pillar. And this is really my absolute, not the 4th pillar actually. Yeah, we're going to the fourth pillar of the body. We're in the 5th pillar. And this is my absolute favorite. And this is the pillar of the soul. And what this is connecting to something, a power greater than you are. And it doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it the universe. You can call it spirit. You can call it your soul. You can call it whatever you want. Energy, whatever it, universal energy, whatever it is. But it's just something higher than you are. And when you connect, or source, when you connect to this source, like plug yourself in, this is truly miraculous. And I know in my life, this is a huge part of my life. And I have practices that I do every single day that connects me to source and this universal energy. And it's hard to explain, but life just becomes more synchronistic and it flows. And one miracle happens after another miracle. And it just puts you in this zone, I like to call it the happy zone, where Things are just flowing and it feels so good. And it's possible to live in this. And I know so many people were so resistant to doing some type of practice. And then once they started, I think this is the area that people have thanked me the most and have told me it's made, I mean, every area, it depends, who you are and what you're practicing. But there have been so many people that I worked with who really had no connection at all to this universal energy. And once they started doing practices, they never wanted to turn back because they just couldn't believe how their life changed and their happiness increased. So there's many, many, many different ways to start this, and it's not something that you can just, but I think to just know this exists. I mean, meditation's one, doing a quiet walk in the woods, connecting with nature are ways to start, but it's just something to see what kind of spiritual practice do you want to start. There's personally me, I meditate and I do journaling, but this is something that I love teaching because it's so, so powerful. But just start somewhere. If this resonates with you or at some point, but I'm just sharing my experience and working with thousands of people, what I've seen as, one-on-one and also in all the programs that I've been teaching over the years. So the next pillar is, now we finished the pillars, but now we're still a house, and now we're the roof of the house. So the roof of the house is living a life with passion and purpose. And this is something that also I see many people live their life, but it doesn't really have, it's not full of passion, and they don't feel they have a purpose. And this really makes a difference. It makes a difference at every stage of your life. But I've seen as people get older, those with purpose and passion, it's very different. They age very differently than people who are just sort of existing. And it's okay if you feel you don't have a purpose and passion, but then find it. And many people are not lucky enough that their work over the years has been their passion. But if that's not, then on your free time, what is your passion? Just think about it. Make a list of things you love to do and start doing them, because we want to live that way. And again, we're looking at our happiness. Our happiness is going to really skyrocket when we are involved in things that we're passionate and we feel we have a purpose. And it could just be starting to volunteer. It could be, there's so many different avenues. But I'm just asking you now to think about it. It's the new decade. Think about it and just make sure that somewhere in your life there's passion and purpose, because it's going to make a huge difference. And then we go on. And the last piece to this house has to do with our garden and our relationships. And who do we surround ourselves with? Are we surrounding ourselves with gardenias and roses, or are we surrounding ourselves with weeds? And it's contagious. Have you walked into a room with all this negativity and you just leave feeling so depressed? It's contagious. It really matters who you are surrounded by. And oftentimes you have control over it. Also, a lot of people say, oh, I can't help it. Those are my friends, or these are the groups I'm in. Well, you have an option. There are oftentimes, if you're realizing this is taking you down and this is changing your energy, then make it a priority to find people and groups that you feel good about and that raise you up instead of take you down. But oftentimes you can't, whether it's family. So there are techniques that you can learn to put boundaries so that you realize this and you try to, there's definitely techniques with relationships that you can utilize so that you are happy and you don't let this upset you. And as a physical therapist, I witnessed this firsthand because, you touch people. So and I'm a person that senses energy. And so, I remember one patient way back, this was early on. I was living in Chicago. And for those that don't know, I live now in New Jersey, but I was living in Chicago, and I was working on this one woman, a young woman. She had a young child. Life was good. But as I said, it doesn't depend on your circumstances. But she was always complaining and everything was always miserable. And I would come home and my husband would say to me, oh, I'll tell you about my husband afterwards, but he would say to me, I know who you were with, because the negative vibes would affect me. So what I used to do is I would fill myself with white light and send out positive vibes. And sometimes I had to actually put a shield in front of myself so I didn't let the negative vibes in. But when your energy, I think the thing is, when you keep your energy, when you do practices to keep your energy really up and really high, then the negativity doesn't affect you. Just like if there's a bright room and it's all full of light, and darkness can't get in. So when you're full of light and when you're doing practices, the negativity isn't going to affect you as much. But there are other techniques that really work. But that's the last part of it, the last of the 7 different areas that I think really can increase the happiness set point. As I said, I've witnessed miracles, and this is what people thank me for the most. And when I started teaching happiness, I didn't know, because it's always been a part of my bones course. I teach an osteoporosis class, and it's called the same as the podcast, Happy Me, Happy Life. And that there's always been a happiness component to it. But enough people wanted me to just teach happiness that then I started teaching the Happy Me, Happy Life purely on happiness. And I just couldn't believe how people's health changed, people's attitude changed, and just really every aspect of their life. It's just been such a win-win for me, because it also makes me happier when you feel you're teaching your purpose. And this is what I feel I was put here to do, because I feel so good. And it's just an incredible win-win for me, for everybody. And so I'm extremely grateful that my path started ending up this way. And I do need to go back, though, to my story with my husband, because I just mentioned my husband, Craig. And something else I've always believed, that when we get through difficult situations, and because life is not easy, life is not easy and everything happy la-di-da. That's certainly not the case at all. Life throws us all sorts of punches and all sorts of ups and downs and all sorts of waves that can really throw us over. But when we get through these challenging circumstances, there's a gift. There's a silver lining in this. And I really, really believe that. And for me, when I moved to Chicago, I met my husband, Craig, who lived almost right across the street from me. And I just feel so blessed. We've had such a wonderful marriage. I have 3 children, and one son's married. So I have another daughter, and my daughter's getting married. I'm getting another son. And I just feel so blessed that life worked this way, that it was a blessing. It was a blessing. I went through it, because I also don't know. I really don't know if I would have married someone like Craig had I not gone through what I had, and I appreciated all the good qualities he had. So things have a way of working out. And, oftentimes you don't see it when you're going through it. But if you can just sort of know, if this was for a higher reason, what would it be? It oftentimes does get you through things. And so I just wanted to share all of this with you today. And I hope you can take a little piece of this, something I said, and bring it to the new year. Because when you do, your health's going to improve, your bones are going to improve, and you're going to be happier. And what I see is there's really 3 reasons why people don't pay attention to happiness, and maybe why we have such horrible statistics that 67% of Americans are unhappy. That is so sad to me. But I think the 3 reasons are, number 1, people don't realize how important this is. And if they paid attention to it and took steps to increase their happiness, because most people don't even think they can increase it, but if they took steps to increase it, they would really have more joy in their life, but also their health would improve as well. Number 1. Number 2, I think people don't know where to start. They don't even know where to begin. And I think number 3 is people don't have a community to work with, because it's hard to do this on your own. You may get started, but this is what I found over the years. I found that community is essential, because you may start on your own, but then you sort of forget about it, or you get busy doing this and you get busy doing that, and you just, oh yeah, I'm supposed to think about gratitude every day. You just don't do it. That's why with any program I have, we have a community that continues. It's interesting because when I first started my happiness course, it was 8 weeks and then that was it. And what I noticed was that even though there was a continued Facebook group, that people started to lose it, or I'd start getting messages that, I don't feel that I'm in that same zone I was in during the class. So what I've done is have, after the class, once a month, we all meet. We meet live, actually, live online. And we just keep that energy going. Because when you have the group and you have people to account to, it really, really helps. So make sure you have a support group. And I will list all of my programs, in the show notes. But if there's anything I can help you with, or if you want to be part of any of my programs, I would just welcome that. But regardless, do take your happiness into account, because we're going to be in the podcast, and as you learn other things to help your health, they're all fabulous. But this really is a foundation, and I've just seen such miracles, and I want to extend that to you, and I want you to be able to find the miracles. And I just think everybody deserves that joy and deserves to be as happy as they possibly can. That gives you the resilience that when things happen, you're able to ride those waves and live your best life ever. So that's it for now. And thank you for being part of this podcast. That makes me really happy. And in 2020, what I'd like to know is what topics you want to hear. I have a great lineup of people that I've interviewed, that I'm planning on interviewing, that I think are so important for our bones and overall health. But I'm so open to other topics. And I know so many people in the functional medicine world, and I have access to great, great experts. So just let me know. You can send me an email. And also with your own happiness, if you're not sure where to start, send me an email and I'm happy to help you. We can even chat about it, because as I said, that's what gives me the most joy, helping people be their best selves. So here's to 2020 being the greatest decade, and this year being a fabulous year for all of you. So bye for now, and look forward to seeing you next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Happy Bones, Happy Life podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe on your favorite listening app so that you don't miss any amazing insights on upcoming episodes. And until next time, continue to live your best life ever. See you soon.